Alright, what you see here is a Hunter Stratford ceiling fan. It is in a very rare finish known as weathered brick. These were sold in several finishes, with this one being the most rarest finish that they sold these in. These came in bright brass, antique brass, white, white and bright brass, and brushed nickel. This finish was sold in the year 2001 and then it was discontinued the following year. And yeah, this fan, it's very interesting to see just a basic looking fan like this with this unique finish. This, along with Verde and Terracotta, are probably one of the more sought after finishes for Hunter fans throughout the 90s and early 2000s. I know they made the Hunter original in this finish, with the same exact blade finish, if I'm not mistaken, with white oak blades to dark walnut. I did see one of these as a kid at a wildlife reserve place. It's like in a sanctuary room of some sort. Though it had the dark walnut blades facing down. Still there to this day, if I'm not mistaken. Haven't been there since I last filmed it a good 4 years ago. But yeah, here's the Hunter logo. There's a tag on the top. Then there's a date. It is from the 22nd week of 2001. The shades you see on this fan are not original to this specific fan, but they do go to a Hunter Stratford. I just felt that these looked a lot nicer than the ones that these came with. Especially since one of them was not the original shades that came with it when I got it. And the other ones were very thin glass and easy to break, so I figured these would look a lot nicer. Especially with the finish that it's in. But yeah. It does use a Air Max motor. I'm pretty sure the bright and brass one that I tested down here has a Air Max motor as well. Now on the box art and the stock image for this fan, this is the combo you'd see it in, but obviously it looks a lot brighter. But I'm also using daylight spotlights on the track right behind me, so that might be another reason why. But on the picture, it definitely looks a lot more like a bronze finish, not so much a brick finish. But yeah, the only catalog you see these in is the Home Depot catalog from 2001, and that's it. Go ahead and show up the light. Now, some people might say that the blade arms are out of alignment in terms of the pitch. I checked and they seem to be fine. It might be more so that the way the blades are warping a little bit that it makes it look more like out of alignment. But yeah, I mean the blades, they still have the pitch. I think it's more so the way they're warped. So like from the angle that I'm sitting in, they look like they have like a reverse pitch somewhat, but it's just the way the blades are warping on them a bit. Now to do a light test, and as expected, it gives off good lighting. All right, now to start off on low. I feel that this brick finish was like a replacement of Hunter's terracotta finish they had for most of the fans, or for not most, for some of the fans they had during this time period. Well, going into the 2000s, that is. So a lot of those stone finishes of sorts from the 90s were starting to die out, in a sense. Or not die out, but they were starting to really, in the late 90s, they came out with a lot more stone-looking finishes. And this was one of them. And terracotta kind of started to die out. And Verde was still around, but it was starting to die out a bit as well. But yeah, this one I picked up off of Facebook Marketplace over a year ago, back in 2021. Yeah, definitely glad I picked it up. I mean, it is just your typical Stratford, but the finish of it's childhood for me and such. And I figured it was, I think it was, they only asked like $10 for it, I think it was. Or not even 20, like they were asking very little for it, so that's the other reason why I got it. Well, it's a bit of a drive, but how often do I see these show up? I said to myself, so I figured for that reason alone, it was worth the drive. It's definitely a fan I can see like in the kitchen, living room, bedroom, like a rustic theme of sorts, or like a farmhouse look. Not like the modern farmhouse they have nowadays, but like a more dated looking one from like the early 2000s. More like, not like all the washed oak look that they've been doing with it nowadays. More like the barn wood finish and such. But yeah, these are pretty good fans. I mean, they were Home Depot exclusive fans, but I still think that they're a good option. I mean, back then, almost any hunter you could buy, you can trust in terms of air movement, whereas nowadays you kind of have to be careful. Some of them can be very slow on the high speed and not move that much air. I mean, unless they had the sure speed one, you don't really have to worry about it. But I do know there's some of them that don't have the sure speed thing on hunter fans nowadays that are pretty decent air movers. But back when this was being done, you didn't have to worry about that at all. Definitely feeling I feel real good like in the kitchen, like especially for like the holiday time of this year, the winter, like making Christmas cookies and stuff like that. It's like kind of like the vibe I get from this fan when I see it running like this. Now for all the finishes that these came in, I do wish that they made these in a gloss black finish. I'm not sure if that would make this finish to be the most rare one still, but I don't know. I feel like the gloss black one probably would have sold pretty well in the late '90s, early 2000s when they were still selling these. But who knows? All right, now to move it up to medium. Definitely does a good job on the medium speed. So yeah, I'm not too sure if it's actually the blades that are warped or not. I mean, not if it's not the blades, if it's the blade arms that are bent. They seem to be in good alignment. I'm thinking it's more so the way that the blades are warped in certain directions because they're basically doing the exact same thing. That's when I had the dark walnut side facing down. And usually that's a good indication to tell if they're warped or not. Because when you flip them over and keep them the exact same pattern that you had them in, if they're still having like the same alignment issue, then that's usually because the blades have a little bit of warpedness and such to them. Like basically, it's like if they're still having the same like alignment issue if you reverse them. Then it's definitely that they're warped, and not so much that the blade arms are out of alignment. But it's not affecting the performance of the fan at all, so I'm not really worried about it. Something I do wish that they did with the Honda fans from this time period with the integrated light kits and such on the switch housings is that when they sold the smart light kits in this era, they still had them like the same types that they sold in the 90s. I do wish that they made a version that would just go right into that would mount onto the switch housing like these, without like having to add the additional part on the bottom of the switch housing. Like basically during this time period, when you bought a Hunter light kit, you basically bought a whole switch housing with that light kit. Whereas back in the 90s, it was just more so the light kit itself being an additional piece. I really do feel like it would have been neat to see spotlights on the 2000 Hunters with this type of switch housing, like being integrated into it instead of it being like an additional add-on piece. I think it would have looked pretty neat, but there must have been some reason why they didn't do it. As to why, I'm not sure, but that's over 20-ish years ago. Might also be because they figured it'd sell more if it was like the ones that they only had just for, that can be universal, instead of selling the ones just for the Hunter, so that could have been another reason why. Alright, now for high. It's definitely moving a very good amount of air on a high speed. It's nice and quiet, it's not vibrating or anything or humming. And that is something that some of the Honda fans with the Airmax motors have been known to have an issue with, is having a slight hum to them. This one's dead silent. Yeah, it's definitely a very good air mover. Unsure of the weight. It's interesting. It does seem to wobble a tiny bit less with the light up blades facing down compared to when I had the dark walnut blades facing down. But again, that could also just be from the way the blades have warped. I mean, when I picked up the fan, when I got it from the seller, it was still assembled completely, basically, and the the dark walnut blades were what was facing down on it. I think it was like in a kitchen of some sort, from what they told me, if I can remember correctly, or like a living room of sorts. I do know that it wasn't in a living. I remember them saying it was either in a kitchen or a living room, or like a dining room of sorts. It's been a while since I picked it up, so I don't remember 100% where they said it was installed. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure it was a living room, if anything. Because if it was in a dining room or in a kitchen, it would have had more grease on it, and it basically had none on it when I picked it up. It was more like light surface dust from on the top side of it. Alright, now just spin down. Now I do like how the fan looks better with the dark walnut blades facing down, but I do think it looks pretty good with the light oak blades as well. So it kind of reminds me of the terracotta fans from Hunter. But I do feel it's trickier to have something like this match of the decor compared to the of it having the dark walnut blades facing downwards instead. As it does look more like a terracotta look. It's kind of tricky to find stuff that match with this. Having like that western look of sorts. Spinning on it's probably going to be about like almost 3 minutes, because I remember that this one had a pretty decent spin down to it. And it definitely is usually the case sometimes with Hunter fans, of having a pretty good spin down to them. Not always. Sometimes you have like one that's like less than 2 minutes. Sometimes you have one that's a bit more than 2 minutes. Like the Infinity in my not the bedroom, the living room in the gloss black finish, that one has like almost a 3 minute spin down. Whereas the Low Profile Plus in the kitchen has like a less than 2 minute spin down, like a minute and a half at most. And that one gets used the most out of the two of them, in the sense that we always leave it running on low when we're not here. This is circulate some air, both in spring, summer, fall, and winter. But also in the fall and like wintertime, we have it on reverse. But at the same time, yeah, we usually run that one more on a low speed, whereas the living room one, the Infinity, we tend to have it more like, if I use it, sometimes I use it on a low speed, like this time of the year, while I run it on medium and high. Alright, it's come to a complete stop. Now to show it on reverse. Alright, now to show it the light. Now for medium. Alright, now to show it on high speed. Yeah. If I was to like see these out in public and not like in a home, I could see these being in like a flower shop, a candy shop, or not a candy shop, like a sweets shop of sorts, like for cookies, like a bakery type place. Garden stores, like, so like baskets, like places like that. Restaurants and such. Alright, that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more videos to come.